What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing my all-time favourite core of Dragon Breath plus double Incinerate in the Jungle Cup, where I managed to gain around 200 elo in 5 sets to finally hit veteran rank this season after getting absolutely destroyed in yesterday's stream and unfortunately losing a bunch of elo just after hitting 2498. Now, a couple of things I want to mention about this team. Gyarados is the most obvious problem for it, and it is fairly common in this meta, but there are definitely ways that you can play around it, as you will see in this video. The team is also quite soft to rollout users like Licky, but again, you'll find out how I was able to overcome them by watching the battles. Anyways, with that being said, let's just get straight into the question of the day. What is your all-time favorite core to run in the Go Battle League, and have there been any updates in recent seasons that have made running that core much harder than it used to be? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Let's go into the first battle, leading Shiny Shadow Dragonite into Shadow Piloswine. This is the Nightmare lead matchup for me, and to make things worse, I'm met with an instant response by a Shadow Gyarados to my Litleo Safe Swap. We're going to no-shield Octail, unfortunately going to get the full-on one-shot there. Couldn't really afford to shield that, however, of course, now I will have to shield my Dragonite, as I just have no way of Incinerate farming them down here before they reach yet another charge move. So we come in with the Dragonite, we get the full farm down, and we have a superpower, but they actually come in with a Spark Lantern. I'm now going to swap out straight away. The opponent swaps instantly, but they swap back into Piloswine, where of course my Incinerates are dealing huge damage. The opponent going to go for Icicle Spear, but they live the Incinerate, which means we get more farm on the Shadow Camerupt. And of course, if this was Water Gun Lantern, it would already be game over. But I am of course double resisting the fast move pressure, and I'm going to go for a double debuff. Now they've got the energy for the Surf, but they should be going for 2 extra sparks here. So we swap out, but the opponent, they overfarm too much, and Shadow Dragonite able to hang on, reaching the superpower, taking out the Lantern. I have no idea how we won that game there, but we're able to take it. So GG's to the opponent there. Into next battle, gonna see a Shadow Tyranitar in the lead. That is quite an awkward core breaker for us. I'm gonna swap out. I tried to catch a Brutal Swing, does not work out for me, but the opponent is gonna be farming up to at least back-to-back Brutal Swings here. They do bait with the Brutal Swing and then throw the next one straight away. So I can afford to no shield this. Brutal Swing is still gonna do quite a lot of damage there, but Litleo is the bulkiest Pokemon on this team, so of course we're going to no shield, go for the flame charge, and we will force the opponent to throw some more energy. So at this point, Brutal Swing, gonna get the KO, but we can come back in with our Shadow Dragonite and then go for the full Dragon Breath farm down. We've got a lot of energy here. Let's see what the opponent wants to do. They come in with a Bug Bite Fortress, but their final Pokemon is going to be Corviknight, and unfortunately for them, they are going to get absolutely torn to smithereens by Shadow Camerupt. Here, I probably could have committed to a full farm down, but I'm going to play this extra safe, go for Rock Tomb, debuff their attack stat. They actually don't even reach the charge move there. I don't think it really matters. Either way, we're going for Scorching Sands. Scorching Sands, big damage, one single Incinerate, gets the full farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there. Into the next battle, see another Shadow Piloswine in the lead. So we Safe Swap into Litleo, and again met with a Water and Fly type Pokemon. This time, it's going to be Mantine, which, we will at least reach a Crunch here. However, Crunch not going to do much damage at all. Now, I do expect them to be on Water Pulse, so I am just going to no-shield this. And Water Pulse actually just barely doesn't quite get the KO. So that means, unfortunately, if they've also got Ice Beam, which I think is quite likely, I won't be able to overfarm at all with the Shadow Dragonite. I am going to have to throw straight away. So I throw on CMP here, winning CMP, Thunder Punch coming through, and unfortunately that is going to be shielded. So at this point, I think I'm just going to let Dragonite go down. I realize it has no play into Piloswine, but maybe we set up a huge farm down, and Shadow Camerupt, unfortunately, the opponent gets damage registration error there. They get to the Water Pulse as we get the full farm down, but they come back in with the Piloswine, but then they make a brilliant catch there. I go for I go for Scorching Sands. They catch it onto the Fearow, and oh my gosh, this is not going so well for me, but they end up shielding the Rock Tomb there. And wait a second, because I've debuffed their attack stat now, if I can go for a perfect Incinerate farm down as they get to the charge move here, come out with a Scorching Sands loaded. This is Shadow on Shadow. Is this enough damage to KO here? Scorching Sands gets the knockout. I do not know how I won that game there, but GG's to that trainer. Into next battle, we're going to see a Shadow Fortress in the lead, so finally a decent matchup for me, but of course they're on Volt Switch and not on Bug Bites, and actually it's not that good of a matchup. However, However, I'm going to go straight for a superpower. Superpower, not going to be shielded, and they don't throw straight away, so Litleo able to snipe them. They lose all of that energy, and once again, they do have a Gyarados in the back. However, we're in a much better position this time around, as I do still have a reasonably healthy Dragonite. Of course, I still have to go down a shield. However, I don't mind shielding in this matchup now, as we can go for a Crunch. Crunch is unfortunately not going to be getting a debuff here, but I'm actually going to double shield, which is quite interesting. But now I can go for a second Crunch, and then I can snipe with my Dragonite. So Crunch is going to be shielded. We come back in with a Dragonite, but they're going to come in with Piloswine, and we're in a really tricky situation. If I full send the superpower here, I'll deal too much damage. I need energy on my Shadow Camerupt, but I also can't come in straight away because they're going to reach either a high horsepower or a Stone Edge, both of which probably will get the KO. So instead, we come in with Litleo. We try not to throw as many fast moves as possible, giving as much health as possible for the Incinerate farm down, and now we just need to outpace, and Shadow Camerupt able to get to the Rock Tomb in time. Rock Tomb will be enough damage to take out the Shadow Gyarados, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's when they're into next battle. I see Shadow Dragonite into Shadow Abomasnow. So, not great for me once again. We swap out into Litleo, and oh my gosh, we are not having a great time here with the alignment that we've got. But the opponent going to go straight for Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon is going to get the KO. I really don't feel like there's any point in shielding in that matchup because they're always going to outpace me anyways. So, we come back in with the Shadow Dragonite, and I am going to no-shield a Night Slash here. It's going to do quite a lot of damage, but they won't be able to Water Shuriken farm me down just yet. I'm now going to go for a Thunder Punch just before they reach the next Night Slash. Thunder Punch gets the KO. I have to swap out straight away, and this time around, I'm able to land 2 Incinerates here before the opponent swaps out. They're going to go for a Weather Ball, and their final Pokemon is going to be a Togekiss. So we definitely do still have some play here, but it's going to be very close. We go for Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb debuffs their attack stat, and the opponent will fire off the charge move. I can go for one more Incinerate and throw just before the opponent is going to reach the next charge move here, so we're going to go for the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb, of course, should be grabbing the final shield. I swap into Dragonite, but the opponent, perfect over farm there. They throw just as I am reaching a Thunder Punch, and unfortunately, Shadow Camerupt will now be outpaced by the Togekiss, the opponent reaching a last second Aura Sphere. Aura Sphere takes out the Camerupt, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's when they're into next battle, another really bad lead matchup for the Shadow Dragonite, so we're going to be safe swapping into Litleo, and the opponent is actually choosing not to swap out of this matchup. So that's fine with me, of course. I'm going to no-shield this. Swift is going to hit for neutral damage there, but that's okay with me. We can now go for a Flame Charge, and of course, Flame Charge is going to boost up my attack stat. Now, the fact that the opponent is not swapping out means that probably double weak to fire in the back, or at least I don't have a great response to a Litleo safe swap, so they're happy to just double shield with the Wigglytuff, and unfortunately, they do just narrowly get a full farm down there before the final Incinerate damage registers. But either way, we come in with the Camerupt. I'm going to shield the Icy Wind, go for the Incinerate farm down, and let's see what they've got in the back. The opponent's going to come in with a Fearow, which, I mean, honestly, not that bad into Litleo, but I'm actually going to bank the energy since I was debuffed there. I do still read that they are very weak to the Camerupt in the back, and here it is. They've got a Corviknight. So I'm going to go for a Thunder Punch here. Thunder Punch going to hit for super effective damage. Now, the opponent, they can full send a Payback, but I actually don't mind that. If they full send a Payback, all that means is that we come in with the Shadow Camera. We've already got a Rock Tomb loaded, but now we've got back-to-back loaded, and I don't think it really matters, actually, because now we've cleared the debuff. A single Rock Tomb will be enough damage to take out the Fearow, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. I see Shadow Gyarados in the lead. So, not a great matchup for me, but I can just choose to stay in here. I'm going to win CMP, and I can go straight for Thunder Punch, which, of course, would very comfortably one-shot them. At this point, we've got the shield advantage. That's the best we can get out of this matchup. Unfortunately, they go for an Octel bait there, which doesn't quite KO. So, I didn't really want to swap out of this matchup into my Litleo, but I am kind of forced to. Otherwise, they will get slightly further ahead on energy. Now, the opponent is going to swap out. They're going to try and catch a charge move. However, I was going for Flame Charge anyway, so we boost up our attack stat, and now we're going to be able to get to a second Flame Charge. However, I'm actually going to choose not to throw any energy instead. I'm going to allow them to farm me down because now we can come back in with the Shadow Camerupt. They're not going to reach a charge move as we do get the full Incinerate farm down. And now they come in with a Shadow Piloswine. All I need to do here is make sure I don't throw any energy. The opponent was expecting me to throw a charge move there, which means now we've got 100 energy. We can go for back-to-back Rock Tombs here up against the Gyarados. Rock Tomb, number one, grabs the final shield. Second one gets the knockout. They come back in with the Piloswine, but we're able to Incinerate farm them down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to there into the next battle. We see Lantern in the lead. So this is definitely where we want to see it if they're on water gun, which they are. I'm now just going to look to massively overfarm in this matchup. Now, this should just be a Surf, which is fine with me. I can no-shield that. However, unfortunately, that does get me very low. So I'm now going to go for a Superpower. Of course, it's going to do a lot more damage than the Thunder Punch. Then I'm going to swap out straight away into Wigglytuff. And I just click on anything I can there. I come in with the Shadow Camera up. I believe the Litleo probably going to have a much more comfortable matchup. But it doesn't really matter too much. I'm just going to farm to 100 energy and then fire off the Rock Tomb. If they want to shield here, they're going to have to double shield, and if they do let that go through, we've still got a charge we've loaded for the Lantern coming back in. However, unfortunately, these water cons are double super effective, and even with a debuff, I'm forced to snipe with the Shadow Dragonite. Now here, I just blind throw a superpower, and unfortunately, they come in with an Altaria. We should have gone for Thunder Punch, and not only that, we also debuffed our attack stats slightly in that matchup there, dealing slightly less damage with our Dragon Breaths. Now, is that going to make a difference in this matchup? Well, I guess you're about to find out as we go for a Crunch here. Maybe could have gone for Flame Charge. It would have been quite risky if they no-shielded, but we go for Crunch. Unfortunately, no debuff there. We are now, of course, going to be hit with a Sky Attack. Sky Attack gets us fairly low, but we can fire off another Crunch. Crunch number 2 gets them incredibly low. We get the debuff, but unfortunately, we're just way too low. They can Dragon Breath farm down both remaining Pokemon, and actually, if we just went for the Thunder Punch there, the difference, it was only like maybe 2 or 3 damage there, but that would have made the difference in that battle, and we could have got the win. But either way, GG's to our trainer into the next battle. We're going to see a Corviknight in the lead. I'm going to go for a Thunder Punch here. Honestly, not really sure why I'm staying in this matchup because I do have 2 fire types in the back, and I will need to swap out into one of them anyways, so I guess I'm just going to bank a ton of energy, and here we're met with a Greninja. Now, of course, we're already down a shield. We definitely cannot afford to shield here, as of course, we don't want to be all shields down with Shadow Camera up in the back, so I am just going to fully sacrifice the Litleo. We did, of course, need to swap out into our Litleo to bait out something like the Greninja, as we're seeing here, and we do have a lot of energy on the Dragonite, so we go for Thunder Punch. Thunder Punch going to be shielded. I can technically still live a Night Slash from this range, however, I'm going to play it safe, but the opponent swaps into their final Pokemon, which again is going to be a Wigglytuff. Here, we can actually force a CMP type, so it looks like the opponent is going for an Icy Wind, but of course, we can go for Rock Tomb first. Rock Tomb going to debuff their attack stat, which means Icy Wind doesn't deal too much damage there. Also, we are very low in this matchup, which means if they come back in with Greninja, yes, they can farm me down, but they're only going to get off a single Water Shuriken. They're still 1 away from the Night Slash. They swap back into Corviknight, but this is just enough energy for the Air Cutter, so I need to farm up to at least 2 Dragon Breaths away from back-to-back Thunder Punches, which means the first one gets the KO. We're actually just 1 away there, so we can go for a second Thunder Punch into Greninja. Thunder Punch number 2 gets the knockout, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to into the next battle. We're going to see a Togekiss in the lead. So, of course, not a great matchup for me here, but we can actually just afford to stay in here. And I'm actually going to swap out and try and catch a Psyshock onto my Litleo. Of course, if I swap out too soon there, then, of course, they can just go straight for an Aura Sphere, which would hit for super effective damage, and it would force a shield. Unfortunately, met with Scrafty, but I'm actually able to grab a shield advantage in this matchup. Not really sure why they shielded there. Flame Charge would never do enough damage to threaten the KO. So, I do wonder if maybe they thought we had access to some sort of nuke move, which we farmed up to there as we did have 80 energy. Either way, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to show the foul play. I'm not going to overfarm by too much here, as I'm going to go for a Superpower. Superpower gets the KO, but of course it does debuff my attack stat and my defense, which means if they let the Thunder Punch go through, unfortunately it won't quite get the KO. So we try to snipe with the Shadow Camera up, and their final Pokemon is going to be a normal cast form. I can shield here. I can then go for one more Incinerate and fire off the Rock Tomb. A Rock Tomb from this range probably will get the KO, so I will likely grab the final shield, but also I've now debuffed their attack stat. I should be able to live a Rock Weather Ball relatively comfortably here. I would try and go for a full farm down. Maybe I should have done, but either way, it doesn't really matter too much because their Togekiss is just way too low. Rock Tomb gets the KO. We can come back in with the Dragonite. They're going to be forced to throw some energy, but they're just nowhere near back-to-back charge moves, which means, of course, we can come in with the camera up, get the Incinerate farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's into the next battle. We're going to see a Shadow Dragon Breath Charizard. So that is not great for me either. I'm hoping I can live an air cutter here, so I'm just going to no-shield this. But nope, that actually gets the KO, and that is really bad for me. Honestly, I should have known Dragonite would not be able to tank that, and I should have tried to catch it onto my Litleo. Whereas now, of course, they already boosted. They get a second boost, and now they swap and they catch a Crunch onto a Quagsire. The Crunch is going to deal decent damage there. I'm going to swap into my Shadow Camerupt. Honestly, this game is already over. I'm not really sure why I'm trying to play this out, but we're going to try it anyways. The opponent is not going to go for an Octel there, which means maybe we have a slither of hope. They're not going to reach 3 charge moves before I can fully Incinerate Farm them down, which I guess is something, but we're going to have to double shield here, of course, as they go for another Mud Bomb, and the opponent actually can now just swap back into their Shadow Charizard, so I'm going to be forced to go for a Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb gets the KO there. What is their final Pokemon? The opponent is going to come in eventually with a Shadow Drapion, and whilst, yes, I can catch an Aquatel, unfortunately, they've still got a shield in play. There is nothing I can do here, and so I'm just going to concede the match. So, GG's up there. Into next battle, we're going to see another Piloswine in the lead. This time a non-shadow, though. And the opponent's going to come in with a Dunsparce. Now, this is actually a matchup that we can flip in the 2-shield scenario if they let the first Flame Charge go through, which they end up doing. At this point now, we can just double shield and then commit to a full Incinerate Farm down. But, of course, I might as well go for the Flame Charge first and grab a shield back from the opponent. Or, of course, I could just get the KO here if they choose not to shield. And the opponent really wants switch advantage. However, unfortunately, it's no longer in their hands as we go for the 2-shield farm down, and the opponent's going to come in with a Galarian Weezing. Now, they're going to go straight for a Brutal Swing. However, Brutal Swing is not going to get the KO. I can now fire off a Flame Charge. Flame Charge should be grabbing the final shield at this point, and at this point, I'm actually going to go for a Crunch here. We throw on CMP. We actually win CMP, but I'm going to undercharge this. I want to get ahead on energy on my Shadow Camerupt, or the opponent at least will have to swap out of this matchup and be slightly behind on energy, because I realize Piloswine is still very dangerous for the Camerupt, but I'm able to perfectly swap out, catch the Charge Move there as they go for high horsepower. Now, the opponent is just going to concede the match, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's when they're into next battle, we're going to see a Fortress in the lead. So, this is going to be a fine matchup. They're actually going to swap out into a Shadow Gyarados, and because they swap out, they are 1 turn behind. I'm going to go straight for a Thunder Punch, and Thunder Punch is going to be shielded. Now, unfortunately, I am forced to swap into my Litleo, which doesn't have a great time here, and I'm actually going to have to double shield before I can even reach a Crunch. However, I actually don't really mind doing that. Of course, we know they've got Fortress in the lead, which both my Litleo and my Camerupt are going to be very fine into. So, here, we're going to go for a Flame Charge. Flame Charge is going to be shielded, and with that boost there, I believe one more Incinerate from a Shadow Camerupt should get the full farm down. So we are going to come back in with the Shadow Camerupt, I believe, go for that Incinerate Farm down, and find out what their final Pokemon is. They're actually going to have a Toxapex in the back, which is not ideal for me, as whilst, yes, Scorching Sands is going to hit for super effective damage, it won't quite get the one-shot. Now here, we're going to go for a Superpower. Superpower, likewise, unfortunately, big damage, but this is a non-Shadow Fortress. They're now going to go for the Charge Move. Sandton probably won't quite get the KO here, but we can Incinerate Farm down, and the opponent, they don't throw straight away. I see the Poison Jab go through. That is a huge mistake on their end. They must have had the brine loaded, but now we've got back-to-back charge moves. Second one gets the knockout up against the Toxapex, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's the one there. Into next battle, we are going to see a Ferret in the lead. Now here, what I'm going to try to do is swap out 1 turn before they get to the charge move, but however, unfortunately, I did just mistime that, which means I don't get the Incinerate Sneak like I usually like to do, but then I'm going to come in with a Shadow Quillfish, and this time I do sneak as they go for the Octel after 5, which is quite interesting, which means we do, of course, get the full Incinerate through. I can now go for 1 more Incinerate, fire off the Crunch, grab a shield back from the opponent, and at this point, there's definitely no point in double shielding, but we've got a lot of energy on our Shadow Dragonite, and we can outpace them here, so I'm going to go for a slight over farm, and then fire off the Thunder Punch. I don't even want to be hit by an Octel at this point, so the Thunder Punch gets the KO, we swap out into our Camerupt, and the opponent swaps back into Ferret. Now, I can reach a Rock Tomb here just before the opponent throws a charge move of their own. Rock Tomb going to be shielded. They're going to look to overfarm, and unfortunately, even if I shield here, they will outpace to the next charge move. So instead, we're going to come in with the Dragonite, and unfortunately, again, they will reach a charge move here before we can fully farm them down. But we do get the full farm down. This is going to be super close here. Honestly, we're in range where a single Sandton will get the knockout, but we're at back-to-back charge moves, and that was not a CMB tie, which means now we can go for the Superpower. Superpower, gonna get the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG Superman into next battle, another Pylo Swine in the lead. We're going to be swapping into our Litleo, and again met with another water and flying type Pokemon. This time, however, it's going to be a Pelipper. So I'm going to no-shield this, as this time I can live the Weather Ball, just barely. Unfortunately, I won't be able to reach back-to-back crunches before they fully farm me down, so I do just throw that Charge Move straight away. So the opponent does get the full farm down here. Honestly, if they get to a Hurricane, then so be it. But I'm not going to bother shielding my Dragonite. I'm hoping that 2 shields and Shadow Camera Up can sweep in the end game. They actually bait with a Weather Ball there. They then swap back into the Pylo Swine. And here I make a pretty big mistake. Now the opponent threw 2 Powder Snows before swapping out in the lead matchup, which means they can reach a second Icicle Spear. And unfortunately, now that puts me in a huge disadvantage because the opponent, of course, they're going to have Weather Ball on the Pelipper, which means whilst I have a lot of energy, they're going to be able to get the KO here, even with a debuff. Of course, double super effective. We can come back in with the Dragonite, and their final Pokemon is going to be a Drapion. I'm going to throw the superpower anyways, just in case they no shield, but of course, they're going to play it safe, use the final shield there, go straight for the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail, resisted damage, non-stab, but it easily takes out a debuffed Shadow Dragonite from that range, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG Superman into next battle. I can see Corviknight in the lead. The opponent's going to be safe swapping into Malamar, and I don't have a direct response, so I'm actually just going to stay in with my Shadow Dragonite, go for a Thunder Punch bait there, and then of course I will outpace them to the next charge move, as of course they have the exact same pacing as the Shadow Dragonite. So I'm going straight for Superpower. Superpower will be enough damage to KO, and the opponent is going to no shield this time around, which means we do get the knockout. They come back in with Corviknight. I'm going to be swapping into Litleo, and the opponent stays in for a short while before coming in with their final Pokemon, which is going to be a Thievul. We can go straight for Flame Charge here, and if the opponent, if they don't throw straight away, well, we're going to win CMP. They're going to lose all of this energy as they have, I believe, back-to-back Night Slashes, and the opponent recognizing there's no longer anything they can do, and so they just concede the match. So, GG Superman into next battle, and I believe the final battle of this video, once again leading into a Shadow Gyarados. However, this time around they're on Waterfall, which is definitely a lot better for the Dragonite, but even worse for the Litleo, and especially for the camera, that is going to be a nightmare. But we're going to go for a Superpower. Unfortunately, we don't really have the best response to an Acid Credilli here, so I'm going to go for a second Superpower. If they end up double shielding, I'm actually going to swap out into my Shadow Camera, because whilst yes, it's going to have an awful matchup into Gyarados, and they will be able to swap back into the Gyarados, I should still just barely live 2 Waterfalls here before they can reach the Aqua Tail, and I can go straight for Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb, of course, even though a debuff, gets the KO there, and if they come back in with Credilli, that doesn't really matter, as we are, of course, resisting the acid damage, and I can reach another charge move. So, of course, Scorching Sands, from this range, either Rock Tomb would have got the KO either, but they're going to come in with their final Pokemon, which is Gourgeist, and we have the hardest wall to this Pokemon in the form of Litleo, and so the opponent just concedes the match. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.